Hey guys, I wanted to give a little update um, on my fantasy football project thingy that I'm working on. Um, I guess if you're seeing this, you probably haven't seen the post I've made about it on the website. So, little update for everything. I have a little GitHub repo now that I've made for myself. Um, Here I have my website that I'm working on. This is the journal post I'm talking about. But yeah, I have the website that I'm working on, and then I have this, which I haven't talked about on here yet. Um, so a week ago, maybe around a week ago, maybe like 8 9 days ago, I had this idea for like uh, a little project where I basically wanted to find out how off ESPN's projections for players end up being. And so my original idea was like, oh, I'll just, get all the data from last year and, do it right now. Like, I didn't think it was going to take this long. So I was going to just get it from previous year and analyze that. But what I found out was that they don't keep around their old projections for players. Like I could not find anywhere like 2023, even year projections for 23 on any other players, let alone like individual game projections. And so I figured out, or that made me realize. I think this was a little more than a week ago. It made me realize that I needed to start collecting data now, and I'd have to collect it as the year goes on as well to create one full data set of um, players' projected points. Because that was the only way I was going to be able to hold on to them, or get a year's worth of projections. Is if I did it through the year. So with that in mind, I got to work. The first thing, if you haven't thought about this yet, is that I needed to learn how to actually get the data from ESPN's website, like that they have, because they have their projections for all the players. I had to figure out a way to actually get those numbers and put them into. I chose the CSV file, but like any kind of file on my computer, like any kind of formatted file on my computer, because I couldn't just go copy it and paste it into a table, because websites be stupid like that. So I had to learn. I got emerged into this whole world of web scraping, is what it's called, which is where when you go to a website, basically try and extract whatever information you want from that website. I this is what has been taking me all this time, just working on learning how to use Python's web scraping library. The one I'm using is Selenium. I started by using when I first looked it up. I started by using Beautiful Soup, and then Beautiful Soup just wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why. At first, I thought it was because no. Yeah, Beautiful Soup wasn't working, and I was like, oh, why isn't this working? I look it up, I do some research, and I find this Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow, whatever, post where this guy was basically like, yeah, if the web page you're using or you're trying to scrape from has a lot of JavaScript on it, you're gonna have to use Selenium. And I was like, oh, okay. So I start using Selenium, and then it's still not working, and I'm like, bro, what the f? And you know what got it to work? At first, I was trying to use Chrome, or I was trying to use Firefox for my WebDriver, um, and it just didn't want to do anything. Like, it just didn't work. Yeah, I was sat there at my computer, working on this for like 4 hours trying to use Firefox, and not a single time. I didn't know that it actually opens the web page that you're trying to scrape when you run the code, because I couldn't get it to do that with 4 hours. And then I switched over to Chrome, and I was like, oh my god, wait, is this what it's actually supposed to do? And so, yeah, that took a while, just figuring out how to even do something with it. Um, and then I've spent these last. I spent I spent a while basically working on this, and then at that point it was just a matter of learning oh, how do I even know what I want to get, And so that required me, you know, actually using the inspect tool and inspecting a web page and looking at its HTML code. And it is honestly a really good thing. I got really lucky that I just decided to learn HTML and CSS before doing this because I actually understood what I was looking at after that. And so, now that I understood what I was looking at, I was like, oh, okay, this is the web element that I want to grab. And then because it has the information that I want. So then I had to figure out, okay, well, how do I get this web element, like using Selenium? How do I grab it and, do whatever I want with it? So that took a while. And then after I kind of figured out, like, okay, I know how to collect web elements and then collect the text, like, in those web elements. But then the problem came up, and so that's how I initially got. Here, let me open the repo. That is how I initially got this. It's how I got like half of this. So it's how I got from here to here. So this is what I got just knowing how to find web elements and get the text, extract the text in those web elements, and then doing whatever I want with that text. It got me a CSV file. Oh yeah, and then I had to learn pandas. I forgot about that. I had to learn how to, because I was like, okay, I have all this text. How do I, write it to what I want it to be? Like how do I put it in any kind of file? So I had to learn pandas. That wasn't too hard though. That was like 3 things. Like I had to just mess around with. It wasn't that bad. But yeah, using pandas, I was able to get all this information, not including the last 2 columns, and put it into the CSV file. And from there, I was like, that was my first big accomplishment, my first big step. And I was like, oh, sick. Then it was a matter of trying to get the player's stats. And so that was really difficult because for the player's stats, you have to, it doesn't just show them on the page that I was getting from. You actually have to click on the player's name, and then from there, it shows you like a bunch of stuff about them, like news, videos, whatever, but also their stats for each week. So, yeah, after I got this, I had to basically learn, like clicking around web pages and, extracting data from that, and then clicking back to where I came from. That was really annoying because, like, basically, yeah, that took a long time learning, like, clicking through web pages and then, going around. And, yeah, after that, I got, once I learned that, that's what got me, these. So, basically, up until everything you see on the screen right now on the table, and then there's like 1 or 2 more rows. But it got me this. So basically, if you see here, I have CSVs for each position that I collected. So here, I guess I should have explained this. This is like just the top 150 players that ESPN had projected going into week 1. So I collected all this data. I just collected the 150 players. And so then after I got all this data, and I was trying to figure out to get the player's stats. This was after week 1 that I was trying to figure this out. It gave me these 4 CSV files, which is basically, the players that fall into that are QBs, running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers, and it has all their stats for week 1. And the reason why I had to separate them like this was because obviously the different positions are going to have different stats. So in these 4, I can keep track of like in depth all their stats, and then here I could just keep track of every player, no matter their position, and just their fantasy points. And so once I got these, then it was this is what took the longest. Actually, yeah, this is what took the longest. Actually, getting all these stats because it's Thursday. Then after that, if you'll see, or then after that, I was left with this. So I had these, CSVs, and in each of them, I had like players based on their position and their stats for week 1. But what I didn't have is this right here, their projected points. Because if you remember, the projected points were in here because the projected points and the stats are on different web pages. So what I ended up doing was making a few scripts that will basically send this information, this projected points information, over to each of these CSVs, and that was kind of that took a bit just because I had to figure out like how do I make sure that they're in the right order when I collect them, and B, uh, because I can't just get all these numbers and then send that list to this one, this one, this one, and this one, because this is 150 players and these ones are just the QBs, running backs, blah blah blah. So I had to figure out, okay, how do I get only the numbers that like if I want to send the fantasy, if I want to make a week 1 fantasy points column in the QB CSV, or projected points, sorry, if I wanted to make a projected points column in the quarterback CSV, how do I go about getting only the quarterbacks and making sure they're in the exact same order so that when I put them in here, they're also assigned to the right players, and doing that for all 4 of these CSVs. So that took a bit. Yeah, that took a bit, and then I had to do the same thing, like, but reverse, like, because here I get the, oh my gosh, I have to scroll down. Here I get the actual fantasy points that they scored. So I had to figure out how to send the actual fantasy points that a player scored over to this big CSV with all the players. And then that was basically trying to figure out, like, okay, so I collect all the, I collect all these, all the, I guess, values for this column in this CSV, and then do the same thing for this CSV, and this CSV, and this CSV. And this one was a little more complicated because then I had to make sure that, because I can only collect, I collect one CSV at a time. So then I had to make sure to rearrange them in the right order so that when I put them into this, I was, right here, when I put them into this, I was sure that, Josh Allen would get Josh Allen's points, and Christian McCaffrey wouldn't end up with like the second quarterback's fantasy points. He would end up with his. And I actually just finished that right now. That is like what I just finished. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm at the point to where all my Python scripts are done, and all I have to do is just run these 4 scripts once a week, to get to update my CSV files, and then just wait for the year to end, and then I'll have my complete data set. But yeah, that's where I'm at with this little project. I just wanted to talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about the CSVs. Okay, so let's talk about the Python scripts. So this is the first one I made. This one was for getting this one was for, why did I have different? Oh, because I clicked through. Okay, yeah, I remember. This Python script was for getting this. Well, not this exact CSV file, but you can see that it's called fourth. So basically the first version of this that I had is what this did. So this was the first thing I did. This was my first like successful web scraping Python script. And then the next one I did was this one. Yeah, this one, which basically this one gets the projected points for next week. That's why it's called next week data, and then puts it into the same CSV. This one, oh my god, I remember I had this error that I kept running into that was driving me crazy until I looked it up and like found out what was happening. Basically, so if you go here, like when you're trying to get a web element, it's just like I found it easiest to search by the XPath. And so when you search by the XPath, you put in the string that is the XPath. And say like instead of this being a variable, this was just a person's name, right? Basically, if this player's name has an apostrophe, it will end this string like earlier than it's supposed to. Basically, it'll fuck it up. And that was super annoying because like I would run it and I'm like, oh, this is going good, and then it would just stop, and I'm like, bro, what happened? And it was telling me like, oh, this isn't a valid web element, and I was like, what do you mean? It worked for the like previous ones, because I started printing them out like who it worked on, and I was like, and that's what made me figure this out. but I was like, it's working for a little bit. Like, what's stopping it? And I knew this worked because this is the pretty much the same thing I used for this one. And actually, I knew it worked because I tried it by just instead of putting player, where was I? Instead of putting I actually tried just putting a name in there. Like I put Josh Allen in there, and it was working. So I was like, "What's going on?" And yeah, I looked it up. I started printing out like each player it ran this on, and I found out that when it got to, I think I started when I was doing receivers. So when it got to Jamar Chase, it stopped working. Or one before Jamar Chase was the last receiver it printed. So it's like, okay, Jamar Chase is the problem. What's going on? And then I looked it up. I was like, I can't think of the only thing I can think of is the fact that he has an apostrophe in his name. And I looked into that, and sure enough, that was the problem. So then when I had to put this little part in where basically, if it sees that the player's name, because it gets the player's names from, this CSV, this is pretty simple. This is just pandas using it to read the CSV and then gather all the names. And so once I see, and so then, I put that name into this function. And so if I see that the player's name has an apostrophe in it, then I basically have to, what this is all doing is separating, all this is basically just taking out everything from the apostrophe and before. So it takes out the apostrophe and everything before it. So for example, Jamar Chase just becomes Mar Chase, no apostrophe. And so then, if you see here, that works because I use this, instead of using just title equals, I use contains. And so I'm just saying oh, find me the web element whose a divider and their title contains, Mar Chase. And obviously if their title is equal to Jamar Chase, it's going to contain that substring of Jamar Chase. So yeah, that was really annoying to deal with. And then another thing I found, I think it was with this one, yeah, is that I actually I'm actually kind of paranoid now, and I still feel like it's not optimized, because basically I ran into this error where the solution was basically to just, if I see here, was basically to just let the page wait for some time. Like what this does, WebDriver wait, is that it basically waits those 10, I don't know if it's seconds or ticks, I don't know what it is, but it waits 10 something. And so before it extracts that web element, it'll basically wait 10 whatevers until it does that. And so the problem I found out that I was having for a bit was that I wasn't giving it enough time to wait, so that it was going really fast, but then nothing would happen because it didn't have enough time to collect the player's stats and whatever, because it was just going too fast. Or well, it wasn't that it wasn't collecting the player's stats, is that the error was actually that sometimes when it clicked, here, let me pull up the actual website that I'm going from. So here, if I search all players, basically, it gets a player's name for all the 150 players, and it basically clicks through these pages until it finds that player's name. But the problem I was having when I didn't give it enough time to wait was that so it'd start here on page 1, and then it doesn't find the guy, so it goes to page 2, but then these players would be the exact same players from page 1 because I wasn't giving it enough time to wait before clicking. So that was super annoying, because that one I actually couldn't even, I was just like, what is happening? Why is nothing, what is this? So yeah, I figured out the solution was just give it more time to wait. But the problem with that is that now it takes forever to run because there's just so much waiting before it does anything. It's definitely not optimized. I feel like I could, cut down on the wait times a little, but I'm just super scared, so I'm just gonna leave it. Sorry. What else? Sorry, I completely lost track of where I was. So yeah, that was this. Those were the problems I ran into when I was writing this Python script, which is basically getting next week's getting weeks 2 and on projections for the players that I have in this CSV. Then the next one was what does this one get last week's stats? So this one was the next one. Yeah, because this one. Hold up. Boring. Spam text on my phone. Okay, so this one was getting all these rows you see here. Um, basically updating these four CSVs with like the player's actual stats. Their in-depth stats or whatever. This one I like finished today, I think. No, I finished this one. No, I did finish it today because so I was working on this until like yesterday, like all day, and I was working on it until like midnight or something like that, and it worked on all the other positions except for quarterback. Like I ran it through receiver, tight end, running back, and then quarterback. I was getting click intercepted error, and I was like, how does that even like, what do you mean my click was intercepted? Something is taking it? What does that mean? And yeah, if you see here, this was my wait time is just the solution, I guess. I bumped it all the way up to 20, and it just started working. But I don't understand why it like without a wait time of 20 it worked for all these three. It was just quarterback. I don't know. Or actually, I think it was running back. It was running back that it didn't work for. But yeah, I guess just waiting is the meta. But yeah, this one I finished today. This is basically this one was a little this is basically just creating like if like they're a QB and I'm gonna write into the QB CSV, I want like the columns to be like, their stats, because the stats are obviously different for different positions, except for tight end, wide receiver. But yeah, okay. Yeah, oh yeah, this was a little interesting. I actually not really. I don't know why. Basically, I had to learn, or I had to quickly look up, like I had to transpose this matrix because so when I'm actually like collecting, once I have all the information, like actually, yeah, this is me collecting all the information. That's why I iterate through all these. So like I click through until I find. This is clicking through pages until I find this player, the page that this player is on, and then this is the list of all players. Um, so for each player, I basically click through each page until I find the page he's on, and then once I'm on the page he's on, I just get his stats. And that's those stats that I get. It gives me a list of just the numbers, right? So like there's no labels. It's just a list of like, 18 for 23 is the first element, and the second element is like 72 or whatever percent, blah blah blah. And so that's what this list of lists is basically all those lists. And I basically wanted to figure out. I basically had to transpose that list or turn it into matrix and sorry, in NumPy array, and then transpose it so that instead of it being like each element, because it was a 2x2 matrix, right? Or it was a two-dimensional matrix is what I mean to say. It was a two-dimensional matrix. So what was happening was once I did it, I had each row was basically all of one player's stats. And then the next row is that second player's all his stats. And I wanted it to be where one row was like all the stats. So like instead of having players like identifying players by their row, I wanted to identify players by column. That was a lot of words for a lot of nothing. But that's why I just thought it was cool. But then yeah, that's about it. That's about it for this one. And then so this one was to get the stats for these four CSVs. And then the last two scripts I wrote were these two, where I did this one first. No, I did this one first. So this is basically just grabbing real points to big CSV. So yeah, this is basically grabbing like going through these four CSVs and grabbing. Oh wait, no wait, and grabbing this stat, their actual fantasy points that they scored, and adding it to this CSV, obviously in the right order, corresponding to the right person. And then this one is the reverse, where I'm basically adding these week 2 projected points. Like, I'm adding these projected points to each of these 4 CSVs, and then again, obviously for the right player. And then I have these little, this column adder. This was me messing around trying to find out basically how to like append, you know, columns to a CSV file. And then this one, I actually don't remember what I was messing around with here. I think actually this was me CSV. I think initially this was me. I used this. This was like looked completely different, and I used this basically to from this CSV to make these 4, and then I just got rid of everything and used it to try and figure out how to click on a player's name, like how to click, James Cook, like that. I'm pretty sure that's what this is for. But yeah, that's pretty much everything, and this Git repo is up to date now. It has all these scripts are completely done. I think I'm like 99.9% sure that now it's just opening my command line, running these scripts, and then like I said, just waiting and running these scripts once a week until the end of the season, until I have a complete data set. I want to go and show you guys my website, but not enough is. I have added a lot more, but I think I want to save it until the 2. I have not added a lot more. Okay, I added 2 more pages. If you can see, these are the just 2 I showed you guys in the first video: index.html and charger.html. These 2 are new pages that I added. And I really want to show them off, but I think I'm gonna hold off until these 2 look a lot more different than when I first showed them, because these 2 look pretty much the same. But yeah, so I'll hold off on that. Maybe I'll give another. I plan. No, I'll probably make another video about the websites like before they go live. Probably not too much before they go live though, is my plan. But yeah, that's everything I want to show off. I wish there was a way to do this. Okay, I know what I'm gonna do. Well, yeah, that was just me showing off everything that I've been doing this past like week. This has been a lot of fun to do, and now that everything's done, all I can do is just wait. But I'm super excited for once my data set's actually complete, and then I can get to the part I'm gonna enjoy. This was really fun, using Python and scraping the web, because it was like, dang, like this is actually a really cool thing to be able to know how to do. Like there's a lot of, there's a lot of like opportunity. There's a lot of things I can do with this. So that was super fun too. But I think the part that's going to be the more fun for me, because it actually pertains to what I want to do, is once I have this data set, I plan on using Stata to run some regressions on all this data that I have, and that's how I plan on finding out like how accurate ESPN's projections are. But yeah, that's like I said, that's everything I wanted to show off. Thanks for watching, and I would say I'll see you guys the next time I'm showing off my website, but there'll probably be some other like a Smash Bros video or something. Something will probably be up before then. So yeah, thanks for watching and goodbye.